Hello, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Rachel, who is part of my signature program. And Rachel is 5 months postpartum. I think you gave birth on Mother's Day. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that part. And she's the mom of Ronan. And today we're going to hear her birth story, which I love personally. Like, this is one of my favorite birth stories. And you'll know why. I don't want to sell the punch. But yeah. And she's going to also talk about how the program helped her through her maternity journey. So thanks, Rachel, for meeting with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is very exciting. And I loved listening and reading birth stories when I was pregnant and even still, honestly. So I really like this part of the program and I look forward to hearing everyone else's stories as well.
Yay. Well, let's start with your story. So,
Sure.
first off, you are from Skagway, Alaska, which is like an hour and a half or an hour 45 from Whitehorse. So you did all your follow-ups in Whitehorse and was planning on a birth here in the hospital. So share how the planning went and like it all went for you for your birth.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's quite a unique situation in Skagway. If any of you have been, it's pretty isolated. There's not much around here. The closest Alaskan city and hospital is in Juneau. So we have a clinic, but years ago they stopped allowing you to deliver babies here. So most people started going either to Whitehorse or Juneau. And then for some reason, Whitehorse sort of stopped taking Americans. Fortunately, I am Canadian by citizenship. I'm from Toronto and I've only lived here 2 years. So I contacted the doctors at Solstice and explained my situation. And they said, because you're Canadian, you can come, which was very lovely. If you go to Juneau, you have to go 4 weeks in advance on the ferry. And there's always back and forth on the seaplanes to get your appointments in. So it was much, much easier to come to Whitehorse to drive through. And I really, really appreciated that. And then our baby will also be dual citizen, both because he was born in Canada and then my husband's American. So kind of nice. We have best of both worlds. Yeah. So I knew I was coming to Whitehorse. I'd gotten like the clearance from the doctors. I guess I found out I was pregnant in September of last year, 2021. And I knew I wanted to work with a pelvic floor therapist because my mom has seen one for years. She had a prolapse, I mean, years and years ago, and then has just since continued to sort of have maintenance and stuff. And she knew the importance of it, which was nice to have that support. And so when I asked the doctors at Solstice, your name came up, and that's when I contacted you in the fall. Um, and then throughout pregnancy, I mean, I didn't it was more just maintenance and getting ready for birth. I didn't have major issues. Pregnancy was pretty smooth for me. I was very fortunate that way. And I am a big runner, so that was a big concern of mine to like keep running through pregnancy and after. And I was able to keep running up until I think the week before I delivered. So that was really, really nice. Um, then when being from Skagway and going to Whitehorse, they required me to come 2 weeks in advance. So unlike Juneau, that was four. It was still a bit of a logistic challenge. You had to make sure you have somewhere to stay for 2 weeks. My husband couldn't get 2 weeks off work. He started with 1 week. So there was a week that I was in Whitehorse alone waiting for the baby, and we were just praying that baby didn't come early and he would have to like drive through the pass in the middle of the night or something. Uh, Fortunately, that didn't happen.
Yay.
Um, so yeah, I guess leading up to the birth, I didn't have any signs of anything happening. I had no Braxton Hicks contractions. When I went for my 39-week appointment, they said I was half a centimeter dilated, so like a fingertip's worth, which is always not the greatest to hear.
Yeah.
Um, and didn't really, yeah, have any other signs. So I did get a cervical sweep on the Thursday. So I was due Mother's Day on the Sunday, and on the Thursday I got the sweep done. Friday started losing my mucus plug, and then Saturday a little bit more, but honestly nothing crazy. And obviously I've heard a lot of people say you can lose your mucus plug like 3 weeks in advance and nothing happens for 3 weeks. So didn't know what to think really. But Saturday night, my parents actually flew up on the Friday from Toronto. They wanted to be in the city for the birth. Even though we weren't sure they could come to the hospital, they still said, we want to be there. We saw them, we walked around. I bounced a lot on the ball, definitely that day. And then that night we saw them and headed home for dinner, and they went back to their hotel, like, all right, see you tomorrow. And then that evening around 8:30, we had just finished dinner and we were watching TV on the couch. And I felt kind of like indigestion. I didn't know what it was, like just kind of felt a little off. And then by 9:30, I thought, okay, these might be something. Kind of felt like period cramps. And then by 10 o'clock, I felt kind of a popping sensation, but it wasn't like my water broke. It just a weird popping, and I kind of stood up, and my husband said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I have to go to the bathroom." And I just felt that there was something weird and had like some discharge and things. And then definitely contractions were starting right away. I told him to start timing, and they were 3 minutes apart right off the bat. So
So you
way too
were,
fast.
so that means you were probably in active labor before that, and you
I
just didn't
guess.
know.
And I didn't know. Yeah, it was very, very quick.
Crazy.
Um, 3 minutes apart, lasting for 30 seconds, but then we ended up timing for an hour. And by the end of that hour, they were a minute long, ranging from 2 to 3 minutes apart, which obviously the 511 rule, that's
We're
way
past
fast.
that.
Yeah. So, and I had told, so throughout the pregnancy and especially leading up to the birth, I had showed my husband a bunch of your videos, gone through some of the programs, your program with him. So he knew that rule. We had like printed out all the sheets you had about pain management and stuff. I had it in my hospital bag. And so he knew in his head, okay, 511, it's much past that. We should start to go. But I also was very set on like, I don't want to go too early because I'd like to labor at home for as long as possible. I guess I
Home
should.
being your Airbnb.
My Airbnb, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's not even home. um, so funny. And I guess I should say my ideal birth was to do an unmedicated vaginal. I didn't have any complications that would sort of throw that off unless something came up in labor. So that was the goal, and laboring at home for as long as possible was probably going to help that.
Mhm.
But he was getting a little nervous, and then at about 11:30, I said, yeah, these are really close together, like I think we should probably go. Fortunately, we were a 3-minute drive from the hospital. I love that Whitehorse is so small. You can get
Yes.
everywhere fast. So we got there, I get a little after 11:30, maybe close to midnight. And the thing that started when I was trying to get in the car that I didn't expect was I was very shaky and cold. I was so
Hmm.
cold all of labor. And I just was like, I remember getting into the car and waiting for him to put the dog away and stuff, because our dog was with us too. And I was just shaking, and it was not comfortable. So even though the contractions were uncomfortable, I would say the shaking and the cold was just the worst part. I
Ah.
couldn't get warm. So then we got to the hospital, and I had to stop walking in from the parking lot to the hospital for contractions. They were so close together. And when we got there, there was a lovely nurse to greet us, and we had called ahead. But then the nurse said, okay, I'll check you. And if you're less than 4 centimeters, we can't accept you. That's their minimum for if your dilation. So I was pretty sure I was past 4 just based on how close together they were and how fast this was all moving. And then she told me I was 2. And I
What?
was so disappointed and confused. Like this was really different than anything anyone had told me or I'd expected. Um, so she said, really, we can't accept you. Go home, keep laboring, and come back when you're 4 centimeters. To which my husband said, how will we know?
Yeah, yeah.
How do we know we're going to be 4? And she said, you know, it's if you're really uncomfortable or if there's blood suddenly or the pain becomes intolerable, then come back. But on average, first time moms will take about so 1 centimeter every 2 hours to dilate. So if you're 2 centimeters now and you need to get to 4, you should have about 4 hours to come back. And I thought, oh God, this is going to be a long 4 hours because they're really intense. And even when she was talking to me, I had to sort of stop and lean over the bed. And
Wow. Was the
anyway,
unit full? I wonder.
no,
Even
we
that's
were
funny because they admitted me like way before I was 4, but I
really, I mean,
like I had gestational diabetes and so on.
right.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that made a difference, but
And maybe I should have like fought more or like, said, no, I want to stay. But also, I don't know, it was my first time. And I thought, yeah, this will probably be a long time. The other thing was my mom was 26 hours with me of labor. So I thought to expect a long labor. Um, as we'll get to, it was very short labor. And so it turns out my mom had an epidural with me, which can sometimes slow it down. And with
Mhm.
my sister, she didn't. And my sister's was 3 hours. So if there's anything to do with genetics there, then maybe that's part of it.
Right.
But as it was, we went back home. And really, the part I really didn't want to do was to go outside in the cold. I was just so shaking and freezing all the time. But we got back, and as soon as we got into the house, he said, I need to have a bath. Like, I need warmth. And I figured a bath would help with the pain. I
Mhm.
always thought that I would want that. And it did. It was pretty helpful, but still, the contractions were so close together. We just sort of stopped timing them. They just were coming one after the other. And I did that for about an hour. And at the end of around an hour, I actually didn't see this, but my husband said like a kind of gush of blood came out and it really scared him. So he kind of said, I think we should maybe go to the hospital. And then suddenly the contractions totally changed and were incredibly intense. Again, I hated when people would say they're not really painful, they're intense, but it was like a different kind of pain that I can only describe as intense and very tight. And it like took over my body. I wasn't doing anything. Everything was happening to me. And I was shaking. And I said, yeah,
We're
okay,
still
let's
in the bath, right?
still in the bath. And
Okay.
I said, yeah, let's go to the hospital. So he went to go get the hospital bag, and I was getting out of the tub and just kept having contractions one after the other. And it honestly felt like I had to poop, which, again, from all
Oh.
my experiences, listening to birth stories and I watched a lot of YouTube birth stories and I listened to the Birth Hour podcast. If anyone's interested, I love the Birth Hour. Everyone says when you have to feel you have to poop, you're having the baby. And so I crawled onto the toilet, which was literally next to the tub, and had a contraction and thought, yeah, I don't actually have to poop. And I reached down and felt the baby's head crowning. Um,
My God.
so I yelled, I can feel the head, to which Jonathan ran back in and was like, no, 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 no. And I mean, I couldn't do anything. It was the very strange experience where I was not pushing. I was actively trying not to push, but my body was just
Doing it.
expelling the baby. Like
Wow.
it was happening. So I sort of fell forward onto my hands and knees just naturally in that position. And my husband grabbed his cell phone and threw it on speakerphone beside us and dialed 911. So we did have the paramedic operator, sort of not yelling, he was very calm, telling us what to do, but I was sort of roaring and like I couldn't hear him. Jonathan was like freaking out that I guess there was a lot of liquid coming out too. I think my water broke then. We're not entirely
Oh
sure.
my God. It had not
I
broken yet.
No, it hadn't broken. And I
Oh,
wasn't sure if earlier in the night it was leaking or something, but they tested like a pad when I went to the hospital and said no. So I'm pretty sure it was like, I mean, also
any
the state of the bathroom after this happened suggests that probably it broke then. Um,
so he was crowning in the sack.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I've
Wow.
heard of that where it breaks in delivery,
Okay.
but I mean, I don't know. I was just in a different headspace of, okay, if we're gonna have to, at first I thought maybe I can get to the car. I was sort of like trying not to push. I even crossed my legs and was like trying to crawl. And then the contractions just took over. And it was a very strange thing where I was really not pushing. And then Ronan was born. Like I didn't do anything. My body really pushed out. And I've sort of researched this since, and there seems to be this fetal ejection reflex that some women experience. And It just results in a very fast labor. And I've still never really met anyone who had it so fast where you didn't push at all. It was so, so strange.
Wow.
And I actually didn't know the baby had come out. I thought it was just another contraction with like liquid. I felt like a gush of something. And then Jonathan yelled, like, we have a baby. And I didn't even know he'd come out.
Oh my
So
God. So you
I was
didn't have that like ring of fire kind of
no, at one
pressure.
point I felt some stinging when I was getting off the toilet, but I just figured, okay, I can feel the head. It's all part of this. But I think it all happened so quickly that it wasn't a prolonged ring of fire or anything. Yeah,
Wow, Rachel.
it
Imagine
was,
if I just keep thinking if the water had broken before, like
yeah,
how fast that would have been.
yeah,
Like
and
even
probably even more
faster.
painful because you don't
Because
have
that
the,
was holding him up.
yeah. Yeah, and I guess I should say that throughout the earlier week, like even though they said I was only half a centimeter dilated, they did say his head was really low. And we actually had an ultrasound 2 days before he was born because they were worried I was measuring small, like, and it basically he had dropped, but they said, well, your belly's smaller than it was. And we just want an ultrasound to double check everything's fine. And they said, yeah, the baby's fine, but he is really low. We actually didn't know
Wow.
the sex, so they just said baby's really low. Um, so I guess all this was leading up to a very quick labor, but we didn't really know to expect that. So
Wow.
yeah,
And so did Jonathan cut the cord? Like what happened after?
so that was well, people always ask me too, was it scary? And I mean it was very intense, but I don't think I had time to be scared until he said we have a baby, because then okay, if anything's wrong, like really no one's here to help us. And Jonathan did say the cord was wrapped around his neck, but he was able to sort of undo it himself. And then Ronan started crying. So thank goodness
Oh,
that was reassuring. But of course, we had the cord and we had the paramedic on the phone. So he was talking us through what to do. And he said, well, you need to let the cord, I'm going to time. He did delayed cord clamping. He said, I'm going to time 3 minutes and I'll tell you when it's over. And then you need to tie off the cord. So go get a string or a shoelace or something. So Jonathan didn't know what to get. He ran upstairs and got my running shoe, pulled the shoelace out of it, and we used that. I remember I said, does it need to be sanitary? Like, does it need to be sterilized or anything? And he said, no. So he ended up tying off the cord with, yeah, my Nike running shoelace.
you
I was
still
just
have it?
so no, we don't have the shoelace because it got thrown in the garbage with the placenta. Like I didn't keep the
Oh,
placenta or
right.
anything, but I have the shoe without the shoelace. So I think I'll
Oh,
keep the shoe.
yes, that's such a nice story.
Yeah. And then the paramedic on the phone said, the ambulance is coming and paramedics are coming to help you. So in the meantime, throw towels in the dryer and wrap the baby and mom in warm towels and just make sure everything was okay. But Ronan was crying, thankfully, and I felt okay, other than I was starting to get cold again. Just I know that's common too after labor, to get shaky and cold. And we were both healthy and fine at that point. So 5 or 10 minutes later, I'd say 4 paramedics and 2 ambulances showed up at our Airbnb. I thought our neighbors probably wonder what's going on. And they were lovely. The one woman said she had recently been trained in like obstetrics as a
Oh,
paramedic. So she knew a lot about what she was doing. And she tried to deliver the placenta because it hadn't come out yet. And then they just generally took care of us, tried to figure out a way to get us into the ambulance eventually. Um, and after about half an hour, she said, I'm a little worried your placenta hasn't come out and you're still bleeding a bit. So I want to take you to the hospital now. So they couldn't actually get the stretcher the way the Airbnb was positioned. There were like stairs to come downstairs and a hallway, and they couldn't actually come in. So they said, do you think you can walk up to the ambulance? And I guess adrenaline or something. I was like, yeah, sure. So I walked with like no pants and the umbilical cord hanging out. Again, looked truly wild. And into the ambulance. And then Jonathan carried the baby in. And inside the ambulance, they did give us, or me, oxytocin and the baby vitamin K, because they were trying to stop the bleeding for me, which was fine. You know, they asked me about every intervention, and Jonathan was really good about, we had a birth plan and we'd use the template you provided to ask different questions. And so he knew our wishes. And every time they tried to ask me something or do something, he would look at me and say, is that okay? Or is that what you want? And he was a very good advocate. So I appreciate
Oh,
that. And we ended up getting to the hospital and they wheeled us into the maternity ward where that nurse who turned us away was standing there kind of in shock. And she said, I feel a bit badly. And I was like, oh, well, how would you know? I mean, really, no one expected
yeah.
it to go this quickly. And then the doctor, Dr. Barnes from Solstice, was on duty that night. She was there too. And she laughed and said, you did my job for me. I was doing paperwork. You know, I could have been delivering a baby. But she was able to deliver the placenta, which I was really grateful for because it had been about an hour already. And I know it's supposed to be much less than that. So
Mm-hmm.
I was getting a little bit worried about that, but she did it no problem. And then said I had 2 first-degree surface tears, which I was really relieved about because after such a quick delivery, I thought for sure I would have torn. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I was very grateful. And she said she was surprised that I didn't have more. Yeah.
Wow. Did you
Mhm.
do the like stretching that I show in the course?
I did. Yeah. So I used your videos. I did it on myself. I didn't do it every single day, but I would say most days in the last 4 weeks or so. I also ate dates all the time and drink so much tea, which again, I have no idea if it actually has any correlation, but I thought anything that might help, I'm going to do it. I had a lot of friends laugh at me for how many dates I ate, but I guess it worked. But I think definitely the stretching helped. And it even just helped me know, like, understand what's going on in the body and your own body parts and things like that. So yeah, if I would do it all again for the next baby if we have one, because apparently something worked.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and then she did say the bleeding had sort of stopped by that point. So that was the other concern, was hemorrhaging or anything like that. And she said by the point I got to the hospital, it was okay. And Ronan was healthy. They did all his tests and everything, and he was great. So
Oh, thank
7
God.
pounds, 13 ounces. Yeah. Yeah, thank goodness. So yeah, we overall it was a really good experience, but it was really wild. And we ended up Jonathan called my parents from the Airbnb in the middle of the night to try and tell them, but they couldn't come until 8 a.m. the next morning. So they just couldn't believe it that they had, said goodbye to us the evening before. And then suddenly we had the baby. Had the baby.
Wow. What a story.
Yeah.
I'm
So
so glad it turned out okay because yeah, like you said, it could have been like with the bleeding you experienced and
really,
you
yeah.
know.
For sure. I know. And it would even have been different if, a home birth where you have a midwife there and everything would be much better than, yeah, just having the 2 of us unexpectedly. But thankfully it all went okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I remember I talked to you like a little bit after your birth, and you
Mhm.
said, I'm going to get the transcript from the call
Yes,
from the ambulance. So did you get that?
we got it. Yeah. I just sort of had thought, I listen to podcasts and things where they play 911 calls, and I wonder if that's sort of public information. Apparently it is. You just have to put in a request. And they were so lovely. The Yukon, first I reached out to the RCMP because I was trying to figure out who actually, like, I guess, gets those calls. And they forwarded me on to the dispatchers, and they were so nice. They said, yeah, congratulations, we'll get it for you. And they sent me the file. So it's pretty funny to hear. The audio is not the greatest. They said something was happening with their system, but you can hear my husband or calling them, explaining the dispatcher, and then you can even hear Ronan's first cry in the background, which is amazing. Yeah, it's
Oh,
so cool. And me kind of squealing and making sounds in the background. And the dispatcher was awesome. Like, that really is the takeaway from that. He was so calm, so like detailed in what he told us, and did everything that we would have done otherwise. Like, I couldn't believe he was doing delayed cord clamping because I was ready to say, like, wait 3 minutes, but he did it himself. And so
Wow.
everyone, all of the paramedics and everything were awesome. The doctors and nurses, despite, the different circumstance, we were really, really grateful for everyone in Whitehorse. It was a great experience.
Wow. Mother's Day will always remain
Yeah,
this thing for you, like this
exactly.
reminder.
It
Oh,
was amazing. And like, unfortunately, we didn't really get to use all the pain management techniques and things that we had ready from your course. All those squeezes and stuff. I really just never had the chance, but everything else, the preparation, and knowing sort of the stages of labor was also something that personally I was really obsessed with understanding, like what does your body go through? But also Jonathan said if he hadn't watched those videos with me through your course. And then I made him watch a bunch of the ones you posted too, the YouTube birth stories, to
hmm.
sort of see that people can do this. People have home births and the partners catch babies and it's okay. He said that kind of gave him confidence to do what he did. I should also say he hates blood and medical things. So going into this, we did not know if he would even be able to, watch anything. And
Right.
he was
And he,
forced to do it all.
yeah, it didn't lose consciousness or anything. Like,
No,
he didn't
no.
pass out.
Gosh, that would have been terrible. Yeah, thank goodness.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Um, so thanks so much for sharing your
Oh,
story.
of
It's a
course.
great, and I hear little details that I didn't know before, so it's
Good.
always nice
Nice.
to hear it again. So now you're 5 months postpartum, and
Mhm.
I know you said your goal was to go back to running
Mhm.
as you're big into running. So how are you feeling in your body having gone through the postpartum course and the exercises? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I'll say postpartum has probably been the most challenging thing for me of the whole journey. Pregnancy was really smooth, as I mentioned. Delivery obviously was a whirlwind. And right after I had a good recovery, I never felt real pain. The stitches were fine. Um, that recovery wasn't bad, but I did have a mild prolapse that I could just feel it wasn't really getting that much better. And I could tell it was there. So I really tried to focus on the exercises. I think after I saw you continuing to do it, and it's gotten better. It's not 100% for sure,
mhm.
but it's definitely a lot better to the point where, I did 5K today and I can tell I won't be, yeah, I mean, like little wins, right? So that's been awesome. I can tell it will be a long time before I'm back to where I was before, but I try and tell myself this is the season. Postpartum season is different than 3 years ago when could just go out and run whenever I wanted. And that's okay. It's a big thing that your body goes through. So it is like a daily reminder I have to tell myself, but
Yes.
um, that's okay. And I'm finding other things as well. Spinning has been really good in the past few weeks. And even just tracking walking in the beginning, walking made the prolapse really bad. And now I can do walks without thinking about it, which is even just
Amazing.
that is really, really good.
And
So,
I mean, we say that it takes a full year really to like
right.
recover from birth. We talk a lot in the course about the fourth trimester and the three
Mm,
first months after birth, but really you kind of need to almost like be done with breastfeeding for the
right.
hormone levels to be back to normal.
Yeah.
So and the fact that all your symptoms have been improving overall is
Mhm.
such great news.
Yes.
And that you can run. It's just maybe what kind of distances were you doing before?
Well, I mean, 2, 3 years ago, I was doing 2 marathons a year. So I was running,
Wow.
yeah, a lot, like 20K every weekend. I'd say through pregnancy, I was down to 5 kilometers a day is if I could get that in, I was super happy. So if I can even do 5 kilometers a day for the next few months or 5 kilometers every few days of a week, that would be great. And
Mhm.
then, yeah, as you say, I've heard that about the hormones after breastfeeding. So we'll see how that goes.
Plays out.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you done the return to high activities module, and how did you find that in terms of
Yeah, I did. I just, there was a point where it was kind of if you're experiencing these symptoms, don't go further
right?
because you have a prolapse or something. So I've just tried not to push anything. So I did a bunch of those tests and things and then sort of thought, okay, I'm just not going to push it too much. I really didn't start running until a few weeks ago. So I'd say maybe 4 months postpartum, whereas the course is 3 months. So I've
Yes.
just tried not to push. And that's been, I think, a good lesson for me, just to slow down and not, not
It's so hard though, eh?
it's really hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've
But
been
it's
through that
not to,
myself, and yeah, for those go-getter women who are used to do what they want when they want, it's so hard to go through postpartum and still experience symptoms even though you've done everything. And sometimes it's
totally.
just acknowledging that time does heal things as well,
Yeah.
and like wait it out sometimes.
For sure. And it has been really nice to talk to other moms. I mean, specifically about this, I had have a mom's group that I'd asked, I guess, yeah, I'll mention this because it's such a weird symptom. I felt kind of like air bubbles down there. And it wasn't like, what did you, in your course, you called it queefing?
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't that. It was just sort of air bubbles that would leak out. And yeah, I had never heard anyone talk about that. And when I asked the moms group, some other moms said, yes, like, thank you for asking this. No one wants to talk about it, obviously. But I had that too. It was very weird and it lasted, X amount of months. And sometimes they had mild prolapses too. Sometimes it was just working on your pelvic floor. And eventually it will get better. Just like, as you say, time heals. So that was nice to hear from other people.
Do you still have that, or?
No, like occasionally a little bit, but not like it was. I would say between 2 to 4 months, it was a lot, and I was getting really disheartened about it. But it's gotten a lot better as I've continued to sort of strengthen and do the exercises.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess my next question for you is, how did the signature program, like what did the signature program help you the most with through your
Yeah, I'd
mental
say
journey?
throughout pregnancy, I really liked sort of each trimester and each week having things to focus on, exercises and what to expect. I mean, you read a lot out there about what to expect, but I found your program sort of gave me the agency to like understand my body and do things to be proactive leading up to the birth or even just things that happen in pregnancy. So I mean, all of it was helpful, the childbirth and postpartum exercises, but I think really for me, the leading through pregnancy to keep me active and healthy and pain-free and all that was really, really great.
And you did attend some of the coaching calls that I
Yeah.
offer through the
Yeah, I did.
program. How did you like that part, that
Yeah.
customized assistance?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I also just like hearing what other people ask and what they've experienced. It's nice to have, yeah, as I said, that community and then ask any questions I had. And also that it's virtual and online. Being in Alaska, I could still do those. I'm sad to miss out on some of the Whitehorse like in-person stuff. So it's nice to attend the virtual when I can. And then having the recordings to watch afterwards if I couldn't make them was really helpful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
My last question for you, would you recommend the program to a friend?
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course. And in fact, I have already.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and definitely I would, even if you're not in the white horse, well, I guess your stuff's all virtual anyways. I would say pelvic floor physiotherapy is really, really important through pregnancy and postpartum. So it's definitely something I talk to other women about getting into if they haven't already considered it. Yeah.
Totally, because I find that a lot of birth prep books and programs out there are a lot about like learning about labor and birth itself,
Mhm.
but not really about your body and like
Yeah,
the like birth preparation of your body in general, and like what it does and how you can help it to give birth better. Um,
totally.
so that's really what the program focuses on.
Oh yeah, no, and it was really helpful. I never thought this much about everything that your body goes through. And it's been, I think I expected myself to be more squeamish. I've never been a big medical person, but honestly, I've loved learning about all that and love childbirth and obviously birth stories. And yeah, I'm definitely, I think we've talked about being birth nerds together. So definitely I'm a birth nerd. My friend told me she stopped listening to the birth hour and doesn't read birth stories anymore now that she had her baby. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm still listening all the time. It's just so cool. So our bodies are amazing. So thank you for helping us all through it. It's been
You're
great.
so welcome. And if you do have another little one in the future, you know that the program is lifetime. So it'll be so nice to work with you again.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Rachel, for sharing your story with us today and wishing you good luck moving forward.
Thanks, you too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.